EVM is very, very flexible. It allows you to do basically anything. So I don't know what we're going to see, but I really hope to see maybe some oracles and real world data coming in. That's another thing, because the financial products that are based on real world data plus subnet variation plus everything else we have on Subtensor, this is going to be a very interesting thing. It's something new. It's flexibility that's multiplied by existing Bittensor capabilities. Here, Frontier is included in runtime, and as soon as you include something in runtime, it automatically imposes the capability to do anything with balances or staking, whatever, any variables or any state that's stored in runtime. You can't execute too many transactions through EVM specifically, and every transaction is still charged. Even the staking transaction has its fee, unlike the Bittensor staking, which is feeless. It's a free transaction. Because of the architecture of EVM, like for example, in Bittensor, we can validate transactions, and if a transaction is bad, we don't have to include it in the block. While in Ethereum, you include all transactions, bad or good, you'll include all of them in a block, and this is to avoid the chain bloat. Developer space is by order of magnitude greater on Ethereum than on Substrate. We don't see many Substrate developers, but we see a lot of Solidity developers or yield developers around. So that's another thing. Users and developers who know what they do, and they had enough time since Ethereum was first deployed, launched. They have decade of experience.
Welcome to the Ventura Labs podcast. Today, we're joined by Greg Zaitsev, head of EVM development and protocol engineer at Opentensor Foundation, who shares his expertise on integrating EVM compatibility for Bittensor. We delve into the technical aspects of EVM integration through Frontier and explore the implications from transaction fees, design decisions, to performance bottlenecks. We'll also discuss the future opportunities and potential impacts on developers in the Bittensor ecosystem. Now, back to Greg with the 26th Ventura Labs podcast. Okay, Greg, let's just start off by, can you introduce yourself and what is your role at OTF, the Opentensor Foundation?
Hey, Grant, nice being here. Thanks for inviting me. I am protocol engineer in OTF. I started less than a year ago. I joined OTF in April last year. My role has been all over the place for a little while. I was reading a lot of code as usual with OTF. It's a lot to dig in. Finally, I got my assignment into EVM, so we realized that I'm in a good position to integrate EVM into Bittensor, and it was a long-going plan. It was apparently we had this plan for a while. OTF had this plan for a while, and here it is. So we just deployed it to mainnet recently.
Yeah, and OTF had reached out to you. They recruited you to be a part of them, right?
Yes, that's what happened. Yes, it's they recruited me to be just an engineer, just a protocol engineer to support Subtensor, to support the on-chain platform.
And then you ended up being the head of EVM development.
Yes, we can call it that way because, well, I don't have anyone in my team, but I'm still the head of EVM development. We have a nucleus team. Nucleus team in OTF is the team of developers, very talented developers, by the way, who are focusing on substrate development. We have many people from Parity, ex-Parity.
And then why did OTF decide this is the right time to prioritize EVM compatibility for Bittensor?
I think it's been on the roadmap for a while, and we need a little more flexibility, or a lot more flexibility, because the community is ready to build. It's very innovative. Everyone innovates a lot. We have lots of developers, very creative ones sometimes. And EVM is just to enable a little more things they can do. Like, for example, we recently, there's recent work. We are working on RAW, which is, I'm not really prepared to talk about it because it changes every day. But it's one of the things that that caused EVM to be prioritized because we need some things in connection to RAW, but other things too, like for example, and I'm sure I'm gonna be speaking about them a lot later, but something like staking, which right now is not liquid, and we might be able to come up with some liquid staking products, or not we, but the community. I'm expecting more of the third-party products here.
And opening it up to builders, giving them more options of what they can do in terms of EVM compatibility. Why is it critical for this broader vision of decentralized AI and the Bittensor network's future?
Um, I wouldn't say it's necessarily going to advance AI development. It's more of a feature that allows us to scale more. We um, we enable, by including EVM, we enable flexibility around things like subnet creation and staking. Like for example, I see a use case for EVM when somebody's trying to create a subnet, but they don't have a initial cost because it usually costs a lot to create a subnet. I don't know what it's going to be when we release RAW. Right now, it's I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's 1,000 tau, which is $500,000 roughly, to create a subnet. Of course, users need, or not users, the developers who work on the subnet, they create a lot of input. They put a lot of value, a lot of effort in the creating of a subnet, but they don't get to control it if somebody else invests in the subnet and invests in creation. Especially this person is if they're not in close contact with this person, it's just an investor. But investor gets the full control. This is how the subnet creation is designed right now with Bittensor. EVM will enable the use cases when we can give granular control to whoever creates the subnet. We can make a subnet DAO and subnet with a token, which is also a governance token to make subnet decisions. And the DAO will be able to make decisions about subnet parameters, or we call them hyperparameters. You can, for example, you can set things like kappa, or set things like minimum or maximum allowed validators, and so on. So you can basically control the subnet, and that way we can give the control to a group of people versus just one person who creates that.
What do you think are challenges with a DAO ownership of a subnet?
uh, well, like with any DAO, the greatest challenge is to make people vote. I don't think it's going to be much different from other DAOs, but actually we are a little bit better off because all parties are interested, because everybody is who makes decisions. They are incentivized in some way. Like for example, the Bittensor has a subnet owner cut, which is currently 18%. So every emission gets shared between subnet owner, validators, and miners. And if DAO in this case is a subnet owner, the DAO will get 18% and will have a way to incentivize people. So that's how we overcome this complex this challenge. But overall, I don't think there are going to be any special difficulties. It's really hard to say. It's not that I'm saying that there are going to be no difficulties. It's really hard to say. This is something really, really new and never seen. Usually, it's one person who controls the subnet, and they usually make all decisions.
And then, I guess, on a related note, why would developers choose to build on Bittensor EVM over other platforms?
Um, the First of all, Bittensor offers um, some unique features. It's not that we don't position ourselves as just another scaling solution or just another EVM compatible chain. Um, of course, all Ethereum projects are welcome to join Bittensor, but the particular interest is in the using the Bittensor features, because what Bittensor essentially is, it's incentivization to ML and AI engineers who are ready to work on their own, who don't want to join maybe some giant companies or corporations, and who want to build their own models and improve them and compete with like engineers. This is how the Bittensor community works. And
Yeah, and then
mhm.
EVM is possible on Bittensor because you guys use something called Frontier. Can you
Yep.
explain what Frontier is?
Frontier is a set of tools, basically, that allows to enable it allows enabling the EVM functionality in a subtensor. I'm sorry, in a substrate network. If you know what substrate is, this is a framework for building, basically for building blockchains that's developed by Parity. And if you know the Parity ecosystem, some of the chains like Moonbeam, for example, have this functionality. So Moonbeam is one of the greatest supporters of Frontier, by the way, and they are also using Frontier to enable EVM functionality. So EVM functionality in our case is just an interface that allows us allows smart contracts on our platform to interact with Bittensor native functionality. And this is very, very similar to what Ethereum offers. So if you ever developed for Ethereum, you will also be able to develop on Bittensor, because we're trying to make it very, very similar. We're prioritizing the compatibility here. And
And
yep.
from an architecture perspective,
Mhm.
Frontier is just like a library that you call or plug in to Bittensor.
You can put it that way. Yes, yes. It's basically a library, or how we substrate developers call it. It's a palette. It's or set of, so it's a set of palettes, or basically a set of modules that you can include in your substrate-based blockchain and enable functionality. And like I said, we are not the only ones who used that, who did this. It's done many times before us. So we're not really innovating anything. We're just going a well-known path.
And was there a specific reason why Frontier was chosen as the foundation for EVM on Bittensor?
Just because it's mostly and widely used by other chains that enable EVM. There's really no. Basically, we didn't have any choice.
Okay, so it was the only option.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then um, the existing architecture of Bittensor and the new EVM components, how do those interact? Is there anything special there?
Yeah, we have a special component called precompiles, and what precompiles do is they are actually um, smart contracts that are pre-deployed at some special addresses, and users or smart contracts can interact with them. They look like just regular smart contracts on the EVM end. So, like for example, if you call a transaction with MetaMask, you won't see difference except the maybe endpoint, which is not going to point to Ethereum node, but it's going to point to Bittensor node. But that's the only difference. The old tooling works with precompiles, just like they were usual smart contracts. And on the other end, they are capable of calling the Bittensor native functionality. Like, for example, you can call staking functions, and you can stake using precompiles. That's again, so we're not innovators here. We are using the same technology. Moonbeam has a lot of precompiles. Other chains who enable EVM have also lots of precompiles. That's just one way to implement it, and I would
And
say
a
mostly.
precompile is just the solidarity code for a specific function.
Yes. So it's basically it's not even a Solidity code. It's an address, and there's nothing behind this address in the EVM itself, but it just forwards the call back to Bittensor internals, and the Bittensor runtime handles this call. That's how it works if you get into details.
And does that contribute to like chain bloat or anything like that?
Not at all. It's I would say we have our bottlenecks in different. It's in some different places. It's chain. It won't blow the chain at all because EVM transactions are all paid. We don't have free transactions. So basically, the attacks like any none of the DOS attacks are possible through EVM.
And were there any specific modifications that had to be made to Frontier to be used better on Bittensor?
Um, I wouldn't say there are huge changes that made to Frontier. We made some, but it's basically like, for example, it's probably the biggest change we made is the handling the decimals, because Subtensor has 9 decimals and Ethereum has 18 decimals. There's that's probably the biggest change between Subtensor and Ethereum, and we made the Frontier to recalculate the balances and everything that's related to balances, like in staking, for example, or in gas estimates. Everything is recalculated between 9 and 18 decimals. That's the biggest change, but it's still on a greater scale. It's still pretty funny small change. So I would say it's very significant for the users to understand or to make some decisions. It's just a compatibility issue, so that MetaMask works with us and displays all balances correctly.
And this 9 to 18 decimals is the divisibility factor of tau. So tau could go to the
Yes.
ninth decimal place and ETH could
Yeah.
go to the 18th.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's yeah. It's 1 billionth of a tau is called Rao, and it's the smallest amount of tau you can have.
Okay. Do you know off top what Bitcoins is? I don't know.
Bitcoin 12
12.
decimals. Yeah.
Okay. I guess random tangent, but was there a reason for 9 on Bittensor? Do you know?
Hmm. You know what's it was the decision was made way before me. I don't really know if there is any reason, but I guess we really wanted the balances to fit into 8 bytes.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess.
Yep.
Um,
Which consider which considerably uh, is considerably smaller than like, let's say, 32 bytes when we're speaking about chain bloat.
and then I guess for reference, how many bytes would a 18 decimal place be?
18 decimal place. It's I think that's what Ethereum does. It's 32.
30. Why is it such a big difference from 32 to 8 if it's just double the amount of decimals?
It's because it's we're doubling the amount of the decimal digits, but in bytes we are dealing with binary digits.
Okay. And then
But
does
you got me. Yeah, sure. I got confused now. It's my. It's a good question. I may be saying
yeah, no, I mean
something
that's
weird.
oddly specific of a tangent for us to go down. But it was just random thought I had. Are there any integrations with Frontier that impact Bittensor's blockchain scalability or transaction throughput or anything in that regard?
Not really. We are very well controlling what's happening in EVM. It's very, very gated. We can't. There's specifically you can't execute too many transactions through EVM specifically, and it's every transaction is still charged. Even the staking transaction has its fee, unlike the Bittensor staking, which is feeless. It's a free transaction. Um, so I wouldn't say I don't know any of the attack vectors as of now.
That's interesting. You said, okay, Bittensor staking is free.
Mhm.
EVM staking has a fee attached to it, a gas fee attached to it.
Right.
Why why the difference?
It's just because of the architecture of EVM. It's in uh, like for example in Bittensor we can validate transactions, and if a transaction is bad, we don't have to include it in the block. While in Ethereum you include all transactions, bad or good. You'll include all of them in a block, and this is to avoid the chain bloat.
Got it. Okay, so then I guess that goes into what guided these design decisions like this? What were the principles that guided these decisions you guys made?
Oh, it wasn't our decision. It's just an EVM. That's how EVM and Frontier work. Technically, you can validate transactions in EVM, but you'll have to rewrite a lot of things in Frontier, and that's not something we wanted to do because we still want to go with a mainstream Frontier and use whatever the mainstream is, because Frontier is not a it's a living animal. It keeps changing, it keeps updating with Ethereum. If Ethereum has some new EIPs, then Frontier will see these EIPs eventually. It's a little behind, yes, but it will be staying up to date more or less, and that's what we want to be using. We don't want to be to stay behind. We want to be updating with Frontier at least, if not with Ethereum.
Okay, so that's a call on Frontier side.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And then
Or
okay,
Moonbeam, I guess.
you guys include all opcodes as you told me. Was that also a decision on Frontier side, or is that a decision you guys made?
Oh no, it's a decision on the Frontier side. It's um, uh, basically yes, we do include all opcodes. We didn't even try to change it. As of now, I think what's it the version we support is Cancun. I think yes, it's Cancun.
And what would be a hypothetical reason for limiting opcodes? I know you guys don't have any limits, but what would be a reason to limit opcodes?
To limit opcodes. Um, to be honest, I don't really see any reason that makes sense. Sometimes maybe people want some subset of opcodes. It's like buying a computer and cutting some piece of your CPU and not allowing it to do fractional numbers, allowing it to do only do digital integer math. It's maybe a good reason could be saving on efficiency and cutting on up codes that burn a lot of CPU. But we are not dealing, like I said, where our bottlenecks are elsewhere. We're not even dealing with uh, CPU intensity. That's the CPU usage.
You referenced the bottlenecks. What are the current bottlenecks for you guys?
The greatest one is probably still, especially when we talk about RAW, it's still distributing emissions. When we distribute, we have tens of thousands cold keys nominating, and if we need to distribute emissions to tens of thousands keys, it takes a lot of block space. So we're solving that, and we keep solving that. We keep improving that.
Are there any problems that come up in terms of like performance, security, complexity when designing this or when using Frontier with the EVM compatibility layer? Does it impact performance, security, or anything of that regard?
Not at all. It's of course there are ways to use it wrong. Of course, we can make a precompile that will call pseudo transactions and will screw up the chain, but we don't do this. That's probably the greatest consideration.
But can you repeat that one time? What could you guys possibly do there?
No, it was a silly example. It's Frontier. Frontier is included in runtime, and as soon as you include something in runtime, that's it automatically imposes the capability to do anything with balances or staking, whatever, any variables or any state that's stored in runtime. But actually, Frontier is a good way for us to screen ourselves from such bad actors who want to change something in our state. Because all EVM contracts are very well sandboxed, and we allow them only do things that we want them to do, which is Bittensor Bittensor functionality like staking, creating subnets, operating subnets. We basically create a safe sandbox where people can do anything they want and still be safe to Bittensor.
How is it sandboxed? Like you're saying, how is EVM
Yeah,
stuff sandboxed?
the EVM is it's a virtual machine. It has its own address space. So if you store anything in a smart contract, it's going to be accessible from that smart contract, but it's not even accessible from other contracts. For example, if you don't want it to be accessible. Of course, you can see everything from outside. You can see if you analyze the chain, you can see anything that's stored on it. It's not we're not claiming ourselves to be a privacy solution or anything like that. But if you are trying to protect things or from changing, that's perfect. So, for example, if you can. Our balances only change when they need to change. Our staking variables change only when they need to change. It's not something that basically it's I would say it's blockchain development basics. How we can control what changes and what not.
And then I guess to go back to
And
the precompile front, what are the
okay,
specific precompiles that you guys made for Bittensor specific?
we made staking is probably the most developed one. You can stake, unstake. You can get stake for your hotkey and cold key. You can also create subnets that's already in place. The staking proxy is in development, and I'm sorry, it's already. I think it's already deployed. I don't know. It's maybe as of today, it's already deployed, and also the neuron precompile is being developed. So essentially the end goal is to provide all functionality we have in Bittensor in form of precompile, so that the same thing can be done in smart contracts and in dApps that support Ethereum
When you
or
say
EVM
all,
interfaces.
when you say
Mhm.
all, what else is going to be added? Like in an ideal world, everything's included in EVM precompiles.
To be honest, these four things are covering probably about 90% of it. We may be able to expose a little more data, on-chain data, like metagraphs. You can't read the full metagraph from the smart contract quite yet. But if there is a demand for that, we will do it quickly. If not, we'll do it slowly, but we'll do it eventually.
Okay. Okay. And then I guess like edge case, errors, those type of things. How do you
Mhm.
guys handle that? Like if there's an exploit in a specific EVM
Mhm.
smart contract that was deployed.
Yeah. Well, if there is an exploit in the specific smart contract, it's too bad. Actually, it's we are not different uh, from from any other EVM Ethereum compatible chain. So it means we do not give any guarantees that if you deploy a vulnerable smart contract, it's not going to be taken advantage of. So it's a recommendation. We strongly insist that all smart contracts should be audited, especially if they're going to deal with funds, a lot of funds. We by the way have a community subnet it's not being deployed yet, but we already have it coming to that will audit smart contracts. You can use it. It's going to be native for Bittensor, because it's powered by Bittensor basically. But other than that, the rule of thumb is get your contracts audited and try not to expose any vulnerabilities.
And then in this process of making Bittensor EVM compatible, what were the biggest challenges in doing so?
Biggest challenges. You know what? The challenges. Probably the greatest challenge is still. It's not completely in a technical space. So we are. So maybe it is, but it depends on how you look at it. But the greatest challenge is keeping it compatible with mainstream EVM, because you see the frontier. It's great we can use it, but it's the flip side is that we can also depend on it, and we have to be behind the EVM as it evolves. So if EVM tomorrow have some very exciting and new EIPs deployed, and it has a hard fork or whatever, we have to wait until Frontier also implements it, and then only then we can pull it and also deploy it. So it's that's probably the greatest challenge. If we want something, also if there are significant changes to Frontier, we'll have to apply our small modifications to the most recent Frontier. It's also another challenge, even though the modifications are small, like 9 to 18 digits, like I was telling about before, but it still has to be reapplied, and that's the greatest and unfortunate thing, because we have to do it over and over again on every update. But other than that, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, with using Frontier like this, you guys become dependent on them to, if they don't update, you guys don't get the update, or is there a way it could be a hybrid approach that something changes on EVM and
Of course,
Frontier
yeah.
doesn't update, but you guys do like a update on your own?
Of course, yeah, it's open source. We can update anything. It's just, and we have enough engineers to do that actually, but it just makes sense to. That's how engineering works. You have to sometimes you have to wait until mainstream is updated and follow it, because we don't want to repeat other people's mistakes, at least.
And
It,
do you foresee any compatibility outside of just EVM being brought into Bittensor?
outside of just EVM. I don't know much if there are any plans like that, because EVM is the greatest greatest chain right now that supports smart. Solana is huge, but I don't know if we have Solana actually became EVM compatible. It's not the other way around. So I don't know if there is any demand actually for that, because EVM is still main target. And for us, I think we're still going to see a lot of things that we expect to see with EVM, and then we'll make decisions.
So
That's
you
my
you
guess. That's my guess.
Yeah, it sounds like you also think that everyone's just going to be EVM compatible and there won't be anything else to be compatible with eventually.
It's not necessarily that it's gonna last forever, but for now I see the picture like that. So because Ethereum and Ethereum chains have lots of TVL and lots of users, it seems to be broadly accepted That's and recognize it. So I don't see why we would need anything new. Of course, there will be always some new stuff like more scalable chains or more, maybe especially maybe in the privacy space. It's we need all this, and there is demand, but it hasn't become mainstream quite yet.
And then I guess also going on the Ethereum route, is Ethereum has layer twos and things of that nature. Do you foresee Bittensor ever adopting or needing something like that?
Um, it's it's a good question, very good question. We actually have. I remember once we even discussed it if it makes sense to have a layer two. The problem with layer two is actually it's not even a problem. It's a good feature of layer two that it can change part of a state and commit the proof, and the proof will be small compared to the whole state. That's the greatest advantage of of scale ups of roll ups. With Bittensor, we have to update the whole state very frequently. Especially that's I'm talking about the emission distribution, for example. If there are some if there is a need to to do something like very scalable with BitTensor, I don't even know if there is any currently, because everything that happens, like we have 64 I think subnets right now. We can handle all of them quite easily. It's not and we have space for more. When we have RAW, the limit will be removed, and maybe we will be facing some new bottlenecks, but I don't even see the need for that right now.
So you think the need would come based off the amount of subnets that we have? So if we had, I don't know, in the millions of
Mhm.
subnets, then there would be a need for something like that?
Oof. I don't even know if there are so many ML engineers to develop ML a million subnets, but yes, yes, it's that's probably the greatest factor. The number of subnets will. Another thing is another factor is the stakers and nominators, because we have staking, and that's but you know it's we still have our own user base. If everyone in the world comes to stake on Bittensor, then we'll probably start seeing some scaling issues too. But you know, to be honest, we haven't thought about it yet, about level two. So I'm not even trying to make any predictions.
So
It
so
might be a
another
solution, yeah. But we might be able to handle it.
yeah, so if there was a billion active wallets and then staking could become the problem, that means we would need something like that.
Yes, yes. Some scaling will certainly be in demand, but yeah, to be honest, I don't know how to solve how to handle billion staking wallets, billion active wallets and staking. That'll be a good problem to solve, though.
Yeah, so yeah, that would be a great problem to solve. So the two main things that would affect the scalability would be subnets and then active addresses.
Yeah, yeah. Active staking addresses. If they're just active, that's fine. But if they stake to all subnets, that's where complexity multiplies.
Okay, got it. And then I guess also on the Ethereum front, what value is there in having a bridge to Ethereum? And what benefit would a bridge to Ethereum bring to Bittensor?
Mhm. If we build a bridge, this is first. Um, it's gonna bring some stable coins, and which will enable price discovery for subnets. Right now, the subnets are priced in RAW. If we talk about RAW, subnets are priced in TAO, and this is how we have our own mechanism for price discovery, which again may change as we speak, because it's being actively developed. But but if we have stable coins on Subtensor, we'll be able to trade subnet coins and or create subnet tokens and trade them against the stable coins, which will enable more price discovery. This is going to be huge in terms of uh, determining the subnet value, the real subnet value. Also, of course, I personally hope to see many projects and new users, because developer space is by order of magnitude greater than on Ethereum than on on Substrate. We don't see many Substrate developers, but we see a lot of Solidity developers or Yield developers around. So that's another thing. Users and developers who know what they do and who they had enough time since Ethereum was first created, first deployed, launched. They have decade of experience. So this is much. This is huge. I'm expecting to see many new applications.
So the talent pool and then the liquidity that it brings.
Yes.
And then, okay, you mentioned stable coins, so like USD, things of that nature. Is there
Mhm.
anything else you hope to see built on EVM for Bittensor?
I That's and again it's really hard to predict what we're gonna see, because it's we're opening EVM is very flexible. It allows you to do basically anything. So I don't know what we're gonna see, but I really hope to see maybe some oracles and real world data coming in. That's another thing, because the financial products that are based on real world data plus AI plus subnet variation plus everything else we have on Subtensor. This is going to be a very interesting thing. It's going to be it's something new. It's flexibility that's multiplied by by existing Bittensor capabilities. I'm expecting to see something fun and interesting.
It's opening the Pandora's box for
Yes,
Bittensor.
exactly. That's how we called it initially.
And then I guess EVM would allow for like a tokenization of a subnet's output potentially. Like if in a training environment, they could train
Ooh,
a
that's
language model, and then that language model gets tokenized, and then there's like a licensing fee or something whenever that model's called. Are those possibilities something you guys think of?
that's an interesting use case. Certainly, yeah. One of it, whatever subnet outputs, you can tokenize it. Exactly. It's you can well, I don't want to see another mem coins, but we're gonna see them anyway.
You think meme coins are inevitable?
Oh, they are never evitable. It's they always exist on the chains that support EVM. We can't forbid this stuff. In some sense, they're good. You know, they bring people, they bring excitement. Sometimes even if somebody gets disappointed, it's still a lot of activity, a lot of fun.
And then, do you think BitTensor will just, I guess, the projects we see built will become what we see on Ethereum will be the first ones we see on BitTensor? Do you think that will be the order of progression?
It might be, especially if we're talking about some decentralized exchanges. That's quite possible, and especially because they already deployed, they have all tooling, they have all code written. They just need to attach to a new network. That's possible. They will integrate to us. Um, though I really keep my hopes up for the projects that will integrate with Bittensor features, that will support subnets and mining and development of subnets.
When you say integrate with BitTensor features, is there any specific examples that come to mind off top?
Yeah. It's first is the like the example I described previously, subnet DAO. I really want to see some subnet DAOs, because like I said, it opens the door for scaling. We can scale up much quicker with that when we have crowdsourcing for creating subnets, for sourcing the subnet initial creation cost. Another thing maybe is liquid staking, and it's we currently have in RAW again. We have lots of subnets and subnet virtual subnet tokens. They are not even transferable in on the subtensor side, but it's always possible to make them liquid and make them transferable if you are dealing with smart contracts, for example. If a smart contract could just stake and issue equivalent of ERC20 token and ERC20 token to users, to staking users to make it liquid, for example. I know some of the projects are already building this, but I don't have a direct evidence of that. But they are asking me questions like which direct me to thinking that this is what they're building.
And then earlier you mentioned that subnet tokens will be priced in these stable coins. Is that because of liquid staking? Or are you saying that the subnet token directly would be priced, or it would
If
be
we
the
have
liquid staked?
exactly. So if we have liquid staking, then that's liquid staking and decentralized exchanges. This is inevitably going to happen because it's just naturally natural next step. List the subnet tokens on liquid subnet tokens on DEX. As soon as you can transfer something, you can sell it.
And this is what enables the trading of the alpha tokens
Exactly.
in the beginning.
Yes.
And then why should developers consider coming to Bittensor over other platforms or in addition to other platforms? What do you think the main selling point is of being on Bittensor?
For developers, it's the community is very very live. It's very innovative. It's a great learning opportunity. If it's even if even for experienced developers, they will always find something to learn. I'm learning every day, for example, and it's basically the activeness and liveness and innovation that I know every developer is looking for.
It's a new challenge for them.
Exactly.
And then I'll wrap it up with one last question here for you. What advice would you have for EVM developers when building on Bittensor?
I would recommend to focus on Bittensor features. Be innovative and focus on whatever Bittensor offers. Don't try to build something that doesn't depend on the Bittensor features. Like stay away from developing mem coins. They are fun, but they don't bring any specific values, any value specific to Bittensor. If you build something that's specific to Bittensor, you'll be able to stick with the community and you'll be able to um, to to actually extract some value for yourself.
Greg, thank you for coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.